Hello and welcome back. We're testing, it appears to be working, and we are reading the book by Ravindra Simpi Rashi, The Katana Mindset Japanese Techniques for Building Mental Strength and Emotional Resilience. So we have the benefits of healthy acceptance. The benefits of healthy acceptance are numerous. Um, we have reduced emotional suffering with healthy self-acceptance, accepting our emotions and experiences, we stop struggling against them and reduce the emotional turmoil that they cause. We have greater emotional resilience, which means emotional flexibility and the ability to cope with future challenges. Improved mental health. People who practice acceptance have lower levels of anxiety, depressions, and stress because they don't waste energy resisting their emotions. We have increased mindfulness, encouraging us to stay present and aware. We even have enhanced problem solving ability with acceptance. Accepting a situation as it is, we can better assess the next step and focus on what we can control. Major key to cultivating this self acceptance is to embrace the idea that it's not about giving up, but rather it's about making peace with what is beyond our control and finding strength in that process. Through acceptance, we can navigate life's challenges with grace, resilience, and emotional well being. By letting go of resistance, we open ourselves to new possibilities and a deeper connection with ourselves and the world around us. So now we have a reflection question. What challenges have you been resisting in our fast paced world? It's easy to resist the challenges that life throws us. Resistance often arises from our desire for comfort, control, and the avoidance of pain. But what if we can reframe our relationship with challenges? What if, instead of fighting against them, we acknowledge the presence of these challenges and learn from them? And this section is designed to help reflect on the challenges we've been resisting and explore how to accept them, learning from them, and moving forward with greater strength and clarity. The nature of resistance. So before we go on to the reflection questions, we have to understand really what is resistance. And it is a natural response to anything that feels uncomfortable, overwhelming, or threatening. It often manifests as a form of denial, avoidance, or defensiveness. Denial, defensiveness, or avoidance. We resist challenges because they demand change, growth, discomfort, and our instinct is to preserve the status quo. However, resistance often only prolongs our suffering. The longer we resist, the more energy we waste, and our emotions can become stuck. The situation can feel more overwhelming. So, by accepting challenges, we can regain control over our responses. That frees us up from the internal struggle and creates the space needed for growth and transformation. The following reflection questions help you examine the challenges in your life and help resist a feat. Examining the challenges that we feel in our life by encouraging you to go through the resistance and have a new approach, one that is grounded in acceptance, awareness, and action. So, what challenges have you been avoiding or denying? Think about areas of your life you've been trying to avoid difficult emotions or situations. Perhaps there's a conflict in your personal life or a career decision you've been putting off, or an uncomfortable conversation that you've been avoiding. These challenges that you've been resisting, whether consciously or unconsciously, they might feel like a weight hanging over you, draining your energy and peace of mind. And write down at least one challenge you've been avoiding or denying. Why have you been resisting it? How does this resistance show up in your life? Procrastination, anxiety, anger, avoidance. And how does it affect your emotional well-being? Your emotional well-being. Resistance doesn't just take a mental toll, it can affect our emotional and physical well-being as well. When we resist challenges, we often experience heightened stress, anxiety, or frustration. These negative emotions can manifest in our bodies as tension, fatigue, or even illness. The more we resist, the more our body and mind react, creating a vicious cycle. And we got some more questions here. For now, I'm going to skip them. Facing difficulty challenges. I'm going to kind of censor where I am on this to see. So, okay, acceptance and commitment therapy, ACT, model, process, and outcomes. Sourced from 2006, the commitment and acceptance therapy model on process and outcomes has a transformational power based on the concept of Shikata Gai Nai, which we've been talking about on this channel, which roughly translates to "it cannot be helped," or "what will be." Shikata Gai Nai. What will be, what will be. It cannot be helped. At first glance, this phrase might seem resigned or fatalistic, but in my experience, it helps to understand the deeper meanings that's rooted in resilience, clarity, and moving forward despite challenges. So the authors of the study explain that acceptance and commitment therapy, action, action. Acceptance and commitment therapy focus on helping individuals make peace with difficult emotions rather than avoiding or fighting them. By fostering psychological flexibility, ACT encourages people to accept their experiences as they are, without judgment, while committing to actions aligned with their values. Okay, this perspective resonated very deeply with me, especially during my recovery from the accident. The author was hit um, while riding a bicycle and was seriously injured. When the weight of the physical pain and uncertainty felt insurmountable. At the hospital, I felt the urge to resist the situation, to wrestle against the pain or frustration. But the more I pushed back emotionally, the more overwhelming it became. It was introduced to me the idea of Shikata Gai Nai, through a nurse whose calm acceptance of every situation seemed almost unshakable. When I asked her how she managed to remain so composed, she replied with a quiet smile, "We cannot control everything. We can do all we can do is face it and do our best with what's in front of us." So reading this study much later, I realized how closely this aligns with the acceptance and commitment therapy. One of its central principles is diffusion, separating ourselves from our thoughts and feelings to reduce the power over us that they have. For example, instead of thinking, "I am an unbearable pain," ACT, acceptance and commitment therapy, encourages us to reframe, um, "I am noticing the sensation of pain." Instead of "I'm feeling pain, I'm in pain," "I'm noticing the sensation of pain." It's a small shift, but one that transforms our relationship with discomfort, allowing us to coexist with it without being consumed by it. This mirrors the Shikata Gai Nai mindset, cannot be helped, where acknowledging reality becomes the first step toward reclaiming agency. The authors highlight how avoidance strategies often amplify psychological distress. People expend so much energy avoiding uncomfortable emotions, fear, sadness, frustration, that they end up trapped by them. This hit close to home to me because before the accident, I had a tendency to avoid acknowledging setbacks, convincing myself that through sheer determination, I could overcome any obstacle, but by lying in the hospital bed, I couldn't escape the reality of my condition. It was only when I began to accept my limitations rather than to resist them that I found a sense of peace. Acceptance didn't mean giving up, it meant freeing myself from the futile struggle to control the uncontrollable. ACT, acceptance and commitment therapy, emphasizes value guided action, and this ties beautifully to Shikata Ganai, accepting that we cannot change what we cannot change, rather, does not mean surrendering. It means redirecting our energy toward what truly matters. I saw this reflected in Japanese staff in the hospital. The nurse meticulously arranging supplies, or the physical therapist guiding me through slow, painful exercises. There was a quiet, focused on doing the best possible job with the circumstances at hand. They weren't fighting against reality, they were working within it to create positive outcomes. The study underscores the acceptance based strategies and that they're not passive coping mechanisms, that they're actually an active process of engagement. It's about making space for the pain, fear, or disappointment while continuing to move forward. This aligns with one of the most important lessons I learned in Japan. Strength does not come from avoiding life's difficulties, but from meeting them with grace, adaptability, and a clear sense of purpose. In those difficult hospital months, I began to see how Shikata Gai Nai and the principles of acceptance, and commitment therapy could coexist. Both invite us to release the struggle against life's inevitable hardships and instead focus on living meaningfully with the constraints we face. It's not about giving up hope or ambition, it's about making peace with the present moment so we have the clarity and strength to shape what comes next. Embracing what cannot be changed. Shikata Gai Nai. The Shikata Gai Nai stage, often translated "it cannot be helped," is about acceptance, embracing the aspects of life that are beyond your control. The state challenges you to move beyond resistance to now, fostering a mindset of peace and resilience in the face of inevitability. Shikata Gai Nai is not about passive surrender. It's about finding strength and acceptance and focusing on what you can influence. Stage recognition. When you're in the Shikata Gai Nai stage, it begins with awareness of your internal struggles against uncontrollable circumstances. The key indicators are you feel frustrated, you feel helpless, you feel anger when you're faced with the challenges that cannot be changed, and you tend to overanalyze or ruminate on what if scenarios. Resistance to letting go of outcomes that you hoped that you could control. Those are the key indicators that you're in that stage of Shikata into the early stages. Then behavioral patterns, your attempts to fix unfixable problems or taking on more responsibility than you can manage. Avoidance of situations or emotions that feel overwhelming. And relationship dynamics, it manifests as having unrealistic expectations for others or for yourself. And a difficulty forgiving past grievances or accepting others' limitations. So the self-assessment exercise is ask yourself, was that within my control? If not, why am I holding on to that? Stage completion markers. As you progress through Shikata Gai Nai, you'll notice significant shifts in your mindset and approach to challenges. Mindset shifts include a calm acceptance of life's uncertainties and imperfections, reduced emotional reactivity to situations beyond your control, greater focus on actionable steps rather than dwelling on the uncontrollable things, and the ability to let go of past regrets and future anxieties. And you have an emotional milestone when you feel a sense of peace, even when outcomes don't align with your expectations. Freedom from resentment or blame, both toward yourself and toward others. Relationship developments, healthier dynamics with others, built on realistic expectations and mutual understandings. And to prepare for the next stage, you reflect on that Nikon stage. Signs that you're ready to transition include a growing curiosity about the deeper patterns behind your behavior and emotions and actions, steadiness to explore and take personal accountability without judgment, transitional challenges, fear of confronting uncomfortable truths about yourself or your relationships, tendency to remain overly passive, mistaking acceptance for inaction. And we have mindful reflection, spend time identifying what aspects of a recent difficult situation was in control, which you had control over, and what was outside of your control. Practice gratitude, appreciate what remains, and focus on the positives in your life, even amid challenges. Regression warnings. The path of acceptance is not linear. Acceptance is not linear. Here are signs of potential regression: falling back into rumination or obsessive problem solving, resentment toward the situation or people involved in uncontrollable outcomes. Common triggers include unexpected challenges and reminders of unresolved past issues, social pressures that reinforce the need to quote unquote fix everything. Stages to avoid regressing to returning to superficial stability, Genki, or relying on avoidance tactics instead of true acceptance. Regular mindfulness helps you focus on the moment. Journaling exercises can help you process emotions. We'll call this uh, emotography, writing down your emotions rather than suppressing them. Revisit past patterns where acceptance brought you peace, using them as anchors during your new challenges. Stage integration. Integrating Shikata Gai Nai into your life is essential for sustaining the growth that it fosters. Here's how to make it stick. Springboard into self-exploration. Balance acceptance with action by focusing on areas within your control. Sustain daily rituals, exercise, mindful breathing, journaling. Create a mantra for affirmations, such as I release what I cannot change. Remind yourself of this principle, balancing, where the serenity prayer, for example, God grant me the um, serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference between those things that I can and cannot control. Balancing. Remember that acceptance doesn't mean complacency. It's about choosing where to direct your energy wisely. So you can write a letter to your past self about a different difficult experience that you've now accepted. You can reflect on how acceptance transformed your perspective and freed you to move forward. It's not a coping mechanism. Shigata Gaina is more than a coping mechanism. It's a philosophy that fosters resilience and clarity. And fully embracing the stage, it's not about giving up, it's about rising above. The strength that comes from acceptance is your guide. Consider how patience and acceptance create space. It's not just for peace, but for deeper connection with family, to have meaningful conversation about what matters most. Again, according to your values, act within accordance to your values. Different kinds of healing that can transcend physical cures. Surrender is not an endpoint; it's a transition to open new doors to growth that might have remained closed if you remained in resistance. The paradox is that what connects acceptance and growth, when we stop fighting against what we can't change, we free up enormous amounts of energy for transformation in areas where we can make a difference. The patient's story, it shows us that acceptance isn't about passive resignation. It's an active choice that creates space for new possibilities. As we move forward to explore how surrender fosters growth, remember that the hospital's patient's example isn't meant to be placed on a pedestal or impossible achievement. It instead serves as a compass pointing toward our own capacity for transformation through acceptance. This story reminds us that even in life's most difficult, challenging moments, there's always potential for growth if we're willing to first accept where we are now. The journey from witnessing acceptance to embodying it in our own lives begins with one simple truth. Growth doesn't come from constantly fighting against reality, but from learning to work within the present reality. In the following chapters, we'll explore practical ways to translate this wisdom into our own lives, discovering how surrender can become a powerful catalyst for personal transformation. And then we are now on to chapter 5, surrendering to growth, a moment of personal failure that can lead us to immense, unexpected clarity. Thank you for tuning in. See you soon.